Hello, and welcome to the How Do I video series for Microsoft Dynamics NAV 2015. My name is Bas Graaf and I'm a software development engineer in the NAV R&D team at Microsoft. In this video I will demonstrate the use of the compile command that is part of the development shell in NAV 2015. At the end of this video you understand how to use some of the options of this command and how to use it to speed up the compilation process by compiling application objects in parallel. To get started using this command, we first need to open the development shell. The development shell is installed together with the development environment. And here we can see that the full name of this command is actually compile NAV application object. In its most simple form, this command compiles all the objects in the database that are in an uncompiled state. For example, if you consider this database, you see that there's 4 objects here that are not compiled. In order to compile these objects using the command, I can simply finish this command line by adding the name of the database, like this, waiting for it to return. Now looking back into the demo database in Object Designer, when I refresh it, you'll see that all the objects have been compiled. A good way to further explore this command is to use PowerShell's help system. If we go over some of the parameters for this command, we see that the first parameter is database name. As you may have noticed that in the example I did not use the name of this parameter. This is possible because this parameter can also be used as a positional parameter, which means that you can omit the name of the parameter if this parameter occurs at the first position on the command line. In case the database is not on the local host, the server can be specified using the database server parameter. Further down we see this parameter, the filter parameter. This one can be used to restrict the set of objects that this command should operate on. By default, the command works on all the objects that are in an uncompiled state. This behavior can be changed by reducing the recompile switch. When used, the command operates on all the objects in the database that fall within the filter, if it was specified. Finally, I want to point out the asJob parameter. This parameter can be used to run the compilation as a background job. We will see more of this later when I get back to parallelizing the compilation of a database. Let's try to use some of these parameters. First, the filter parameter. This parameter lets me compile only a subset of the objects in the database. For instance, if I specify type equals table colon ID equals 1 to 100 as the filter, the command would only compile the tables in the range 1 to 100. You may now notice that the command returned almost immediately. And actually this is because all the objects in this filter are already in a compiled state in this database. To force the command to compile the objects anyhow, we need to use a recompile switch like this. So now it will take the command a bit longer to return. As a next example, we will look at what the output looks like when a compilation error occurs. For this, I will introduce a syntax error in CodeUnit 1. I will save it without compiling. And now, as before, I can compile all the uncompiled objects in the database. And here you'll have the output, saying that there's an undefined variable in CodeUnit 1. If you're familiar with the FinSQL command line tool, you may recognize the output as being the same as the output in the log files produced by that tool. So far we've seen that the compile command returns only after the compilation process is finished. However, to be able to compile an application database in parallel, we need a way to compile objects in the background. For this, we can use the concept of PowerShell jobs. And this is where the sJob parameter comes into play. Let's first see what happens when I use this sJob parameter to compile the demo database. Now the compile command returns immediately, returning a job object that I can use to retrieve the status or the output. And PowerShell offers a set of commandlets to work with jobs. For instance, there's the getJob commandlet, which gives me all the jobs that have been started in the current session. And you see that the job I just started is now completed. Then I can use the receiveJob commandlet to retrieve the output for the job, which is still the same, the compilation error that we saw before. Let's just get that out of the way before we continue. So in order to compile an application database in parallel, all that is left now is a way to divide the compilation work over different jobs. And the easiest way to do this is to do this by object type. For this I define a variable and assign it an array of object types. So let's start with these four: page, table, code unit, and report. I have this array of object types, and then I can use PowerShell's iteration functionality to iterate over each of these object types and to start a compile job for each of them. Before I do this, I first want to show you something else, and that is how the CPU is used when compiling objects in only a single thread. So I recompile the demo database with this command and inspect the CPU utilization via Task Manager. So we can see that it is about 40%, between 40 and 50%. Okay, let's stop this again. And now see what happens when we compile this database in parallel. So we start with the types array with all the object types. Then we pipe it into the for each object commandlet. And then for each type we start a compile job for the demo database that recompiles it as a job. The trick is now to set the filter correctly. So we want to be specific about the type, that it equals the current value of the loop variable, which is accessed by $_. Now I get 4 jobs returned, and each of them starts compiling a specific object type. Opening up Task Manager again now reveals 4 processes running the compilation, and I see that the CPU is now utilized for 100%. So this will significantly speed up the compilation process. This brings me to the end of this video, in which I demonstrated how to use the compile command and what the different options of this command are, and in particular how to use it to speed up compilation by compiling application objects in parallel. Thank you for listening.